Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Fred Studer, and I am the CMO of TIBCO. And I could not be more fired up to be hosting today's panel of TIBCO executives. We have a set of amazing people that are not only really incredibly talented and knowledgeable about these areas, but they happen to be great people that I get to work with every day. So this is definitely going to be fun. We have Matt Quinn, our Chief Operating Officer, Nelson Peteshik, CTO. We have Michael O'Connell, our Chief Analytics Officer, and this is definitely going to be a lot of fun. So welcome, guys. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Looking forward to it. Should be good.
It should be very fun.
Had to find the mute button.
There it is. I think many of us have failed to do that. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have questions, please submit them anytime via the chat. We'll be monitoring that and we'll be happy to either answer those during the session or we'll follow up with them. Today's session is really about just trends that we're seeing in the market. So lots of tech trends are impacting our customers and partners, and the pace of innovation has not slowed down at all. In fact, if anything, it's increased at a rapid rate. So we're going to dive right in to discuss TIBCO Labs specifically, and I'm gonna go right to Matt. Matt, you work with this a lot day in and day out. So maybe you can just talk about what TIBCO is doing to support innovation for its customers.
Yeah. So look, let me kind of break that up into a couple of different areas, and the first actually being kind of one of the topics of today, which is TIBCO Labs. So look, TIBCO has historically been very, very customer centric, working with customers in multiple different ways, innovative customers, large customers, very complex use cases, and part of who we are is to really solve the world's most complex data problems. And for a long period of time, the approach that we would take when it came to customer-led innovation was very episodic in nature. So we would do a very good job, but we'd do it kind of in different ways around the world. When Nelson and Michael created TIBCO Labs, it was really designed to allow a much more consistent approach to innovation and customer-led innovation, where everyone's really where everyone really understands what the goalposts are, the way to approach it, and it really has led to a much more predictable set of innovations. One of my favorites, being Project Discover, which we worked for many years with a number of different customers, which I know that Nelson will probably go into, to really hone what process mining and discovery needed to look like. And so what it did is that innovation cycle through TIBCO Labs really allowed us to do two things. One, we were able to satisfy the project far better than we could through other mechanisms. But the second thing is we were able to come out with a version 1 of a product that feels more like a version 2 and version 3. And so it's a lot faster to value for existing customers and for people who are looking at it new. So lots of different ways, but TIBCO Labs has really become a key element in that arsenal.
Yeah, I love it, and the fact that you really talk about how we're trying to address the speed at which our customers need to really evolve, but we're really thinking ahead about really what's going on in the market. And so that's something obviously, Nelson, your whole framework around labs really focuses on. So when we think about, one of the topics I hear about a lot is just digital transformation. It's totally top of mind for customers, and innovation is key to that effort. So how are you seeing customers getting started with really optimizing the results with this notion of digital transformation?
Yeah, a variety of different mechanisms there. That could be a whole session in itself. But I think the one thing that customers are really focused on is really what I'm going to call just discovery. And this notion of discovery when it comes to innovation and when it comes to digital transformation and how you get started is really sort of the precursor to any other type of activity that might occur after that. And that we'll talk about some of those today, I'm sure, but there's a number of activities around data, there's a number of activities around analytics, there's a number of activities around computing, all those kinds of things. But the first thing that has to happen is discovery. And it's really around discovery about what information you have or what information you want to have and what the gap is between the two and how you actually get there. It's discovery around your business processes. So Matt mentioned the Project Discover, which is really around process mining. If you don't know what your processes look like today, and you don't know where your bottlenecks are, and you don't know what how many variations of a process you have, of which most organizations have many, and you need to understand beyond what's documented, you want to know what's actually running, not what you wrote down, because what you wrote down is probably not what's happening either. That element of discovery is key, right? And from there, then you can optimize, then you can figure out how you transform that part of your business. Then you can figure out what you need when it comes to your data. So I always start with the element of discovery, and whether it's, again, discovery around gaps that you have from point A to point B and how you get there, or discovery around your processes, discovery around your data, whatever that is, it's the very key first step that you need to go through for essentially any digital transformation strategy.
For sure. And I'm going to just pick up on that. And Nelson, clearly in your role, and really Michael and Matt, across the board, we're always talking to customers and partners about what's going on. So when you think about it, a lot of these topics start to come up. It's like, discovery starts to turn into identity and process transparency and supply chain automation. So maybe you can give a point or two around kind of what you're seeing the hype around everything in the market, including things like even NFT that we've talked a lot about even here.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'll list one or two, and then I'm sure the rest of the group here will chime in. But as you mentioned, discovery then leads to those elements that you feel that you need or need to do a better job of in order to, again, meet the new demands of the business, the market, match what your competitors are doing, surpass, and so on and so forth. And so one of the areas, and this is an interesting area, it's been around for quite some time, but it tends to go through these ebbs and flows as there's some hype, and then, well, the hype didn't work out, and then you kind of back away, and then it comes back again with a new acronym, and then you might back away from that. But underpinning all of this is a lot of the technology that's related to the world of blockchain, just in general. And I'm not telling you, Fred, what coins you should be buying and how to retire on Ethereum or anything like that. But the idea is just the notion of decentralized business networks and how you can facilitate and streamline interoperability and interactions between those business networks is something that we've seen a lot of organizations look at. And that requires a whole number of elements, but one of which can be either blockchain or blockchain related technologies. And so it's things like identity. How do you have or take control of one's identity? How do you have identity as it relates to IoT devices? I mean, we're going to have vehicles talking to infrastructure. How do you make sure it's the right vehicle talking to the right infrastructure? I mean, there's those elements that are come into play. How do you tokenize certain assets and represent those as new digital products, which can then lead to better customer engagement, better customer segmentation? That there's a lot of different areas of just this broader notion of blockchain that I can really apply to this area of digital transformation, and really goes back to that discovery phase. What do you need? What are you missing? And how do you get there? So that is definitely one area that we're looking at through TIBCO Labs is that broader use and application, and sometimes more importantly, where you don't apply it.
Yeah, I love it. And, not only does it hit home with regards to just discovery being kind of the key element, but identity is so pervasive, whether you're talking about blockchain, NFTs, or what I really do want to know is how I am going to make money on Bitcoin. So we'll talk about that later. But, I know everybody can kind of jump in on all of these topics, but I want to go to Michael because, one of the things that I think organizations today need to do a better job of, including us, is tapping the power of data because it's growing exponentially. It's all over the map. And to your point, discovery can be very difficult if you don't have the right tools. And if you can't have that right tooling to do the discovery, you have no chance of really discovering identity. So maybe, Michael, you can do a little bit more of kind of telling us about the power of data to drive deeper insights, including just better understanding of customers. So what types of trends are you seeing regarding just handling and processing customer data?
Yeah, for sure. Well, just to firstly pick up on Nelson's point, those examples of chains and networks and business processes are not your standard flat two-dimensional table of data. So we can talk a bit about that, but looking at processes and chains and networks, you got to come up with different visualizations, different analytics. You're looking at process maps, you're looking at journey viewers, you're looking at we're doing quite a bit of rekindling of the work we've done with tree maps and drill down into new visualizations we've created, like icicle plots, to pull out hierarchies and dig into different parts of a process. So that's all been pretty exciting. But going back to your other question, Fred, there's a lot of unstructured, when you start talking about customer data, there's a lot of unstructured data out there. So we've seen quite a resurgence recently of natural language processing techniques. And that's been pretty fun, kind of pulling out of the n-gram features, or doing name entity recognition to find entities in data automatically and tag them, figure out how to do sentiment analysis and tag individual words with polarity scores that allow you to, throw up graphs like word clouds or text cards, which we've created, separate mods in Spotfire to look at those text data, to be able to sort of color those by the polarity of the words that are in the analysis. It's all about sort of turning unstructured data into structured data to do modeling, but also these ways of visualizing those sorts of data have come to the fore. So we've really seen this combination of algorithms and visuals sort of, go to different sorts of data than the usual standard table. But, in the meantime, we're trying to help our customers, get insights from their data, explore the data as you've been talking about, and suggest things to them to make that faster and smarter. And we're kind of enabling our customers to then build their own machine learning algorithms, and then we're helping them get those into production. And that brings a whole nother set of issues to the table, ethics about, because now you've got an algorithm in production, you're more exposed. So you're now more worried about governance and, things like that. So it's really a, evolving and, very diverse analytics landscape that we're in right now.
Yeah, I love it. You kind of hit a key point around icicle plots, and I think that could be very helpful to Nelson, given the fact that they're canceling ski races because of the snow. But yes, you hear about these crazy ways that everybody needs to start looking at all of these different types of data sets, and the way that we visualize them is really key. And it's different even per role, per type of area of company. But I think the way that you're really describing it, Michael, and obviously people can go look at this online, the ways that you're really trying to expose all of these different elements of data to try to get people to understand what to do with it, and the right data is really key. So I really appreciated that comment. So that's awesome. We just came back, and in fact, I'm wearing the shirt, the sweatshirt from an amazing record-breaking TIBCO Now. And I thought it would be great for you to talk about just the incredible announcements of all the great work that your team did over the last year that we introduced at TIBCO Now. So maybe, we can't cover all of them, Matt, but maybe you can just hit some of the most exciting things from your perspective that your great team accomplished this year.
Well, I can probably try. People might get bored if I went through everyone.
Never.
So before I do that, I did want to just to all the teams that participated to create and to release some pretty awesome pieces of software and services. Thank you very much. It was a bit of a strange year. I think we all thought that 2022 was going to be a little different when it came to the pandemic than what actually happened. So really appreciate everyone on the TIBCO team for really pulling forward. But Fred, look, there was a number of pretty large announcements at TIBCO Now, and some of these have some profound impact on how customers and partners can leverage TIBCO software. If I think about things and I break them down into connect, unify, and predict, being kind of the three pillars of the TIBCO universe. On the connect side, there was a couple of really important announcements. One was really adding a lot more intelligence into TIBCO cloud integration, helping in areas like tuning of engines for more efficiency, as well as data mapping, which is a really complex thing. We also had a very important, almost companion product to integration is messaging, with the release of EMSX Cloud Native, which allows customers who are running EMS workloads on premise and in the data center to move them both to their own container-based environment, but also really importantly, EMS support as part of TIBCO Cloud Messaging. So allow customers to leverage that from a SaaS point of view. On the Unify side, Big year in general. So the release of EBX6 and the first kind of cloud native aspects of EBX. EBX6 really does break down the barriers between master data and operational data, and really allows you to kind of mix them all together, which is super important. Customers have always struggled with this, which is what is master data versus what is my operational data, and the lines are blurring so much that EBX6 is really a step in the direction of making sure that you can kind of manage both halves of that. We released a new data quality product. Again, kind of amping up that the data governance side. It's not just about the metadata. And then finally, in the Unify side, it's really data virtualization. Big year for data virtualization with 8.4 and 8.5, adding in some much easy to use components around library management, around how you can now graphically and from a web-based point of view script out and visually model those distributed queries is a huge thing. And then finally, on the Predict side, I think as many of you know, we acquired Information Builders earlier this year, and one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that we put a lot of focus on was getting web focus to the cloud, and we had the first release of that late this year, which was really great, and loved to see how the IBI team members work with their TIBCO team members and really becoming part of one team. And we also released a new product in the predictor arena called ModelOps, which is Michael mentioned this a little bit, which really allows us to govern how AI and data science models, really any kind of model, can actually be kind of managed and governed and run with production workloads in mind. And so this is just a few of some of the announcements. And we've got a pretty full dance card already for 2022, which over the year we'll be starting to talk about it a little bit more. But really great stuff, and really like where everything is going, and really unlocking the value of TIBCO both on premise, in hybrid cloud, but more importantly today, it's really this polycloud and omnicloud environments.
Yeah, I love it, Matt. There were so many things to be excited about. You nailed it. And in fact, I'll echo your point around not just thanking, all of your great team, but our partners and our customers to really help us drive to some great innovation. There was a question, Matt, that popped up in the panel, and it was from Ronald Thompson, and he wanted to see if you could touch just a little bit on data value to the consumer.
Well, that's a pretty broad topic. It depends. It depends a little bit on what you mean. And in fact, I spent some time working with some independent parties on this very topic. So data value to the end consumer, and so this is differentiate a little bit. Normally, we're talking about data between parties, between kind of companies, but when you're talking about it to the end consumer, it's a whole bunch of other things that start to get brought up. Not least of all, of course, is privacy and ethics. Now, I think that there's one fundamental, which is I think personally that you should own your data. Now, how that data is serviced as an end consumer and how it's stored and all the rest of it is a much broader conversation. But I honestly think that if you've created the data, either directly or indirectly, you should own that data. And so it really starts to bring in the element of privacy and making sure that you are protecting your data. The challenge comes where you've got a lot of different systems that have to then provide you and everyone else that same data. I would also say that some data, a good example of this is the old web clicks on a store page. It is your data, right? They're your clicks, but individually, that data is not particularly valuable. When you aggregate it together, all of a sudden you start to get a much bigger set of value. And so I think that's one of the challenges, is that there's data that you want to keep private because it is valuable to you. It's who you define. It's almost like the cost if it leaked out is the way you think about it. And then there's the others, which is you are part of a much broader collective, upon your little tiny piece of data doesn't really mean all that much until you start to aggregate it and slice and dice it in different ways. So I'm not trying to kind of not answer the question, but I think that you've almost got to look at the cost side as well as the value side, because I think the value of your own data is perhaps not as great as the cost of that data if it gets into the wrong hands. That's my general view. Michael and Nelson, given that I just went word soupy on you all, you can polish up what I just said.
Before you guys jump in, somebody said Matt Quinn is the best. So clearly your answer nailed it. But if anybody else wants to jump in, please feel free.
Yeah, I don't know if it's safe to do so now. I think maybe we just leave it at that.
Yeah, really, right?
Yeah, and you know, it's good. That was awesome, Matt. Thank you.
Pretty big topic, so it's really kind of it's a bit dangerous to dive into it because it's not just the data having all these increasing regulations. There's also the algorithms with the AAA Act that got passed by Congress, all this kind of stuff. So it's a bit of a whole another webinar on that topic of privacy and regulation, really.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, for us. That's why we're starting to see the emergence of things like marketplaces, specifically around data, which then leads into some of the work that, and Jesus mentioned it earlier, but some of the work around things like federated learning. So how do you share data without leaking any private information so that then you can provide better data or better results from the aggregation of all those data sets, again, without leaking any private information, personal information, and so on, which then leads to better results for the end consumer. Or in certain examples, I always use the examples of hospitals, you know, hospitals collaborating, sharing their data without actually sharing their data, training their models, coming up with more accurate models leads to better patient care and outcomes. So those kinds of things we're definitely starting to see more interest around.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Well, clearly we've got a lot of interest in that. So maybe we can actually put that on the set of next topics. But Michael, maybe I'll go to you.
I was going to say, thanks, Ron. You've just given us the idea for the next webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. We owe you. So I'll hit you, Michael, with this last one. And, you know, you and I spend a lot of time, obviously in our one-on-ones talking about things like this, but you shared with me the last time that we met, just all of these great thoughts on emerging data and analytics in areas like even computer vision and cybersecurity. So maybe you can just briefly elaborate on that and give the audience just a little bit of color on that.
Yeah, really what we've seen is the whole field of anomaly detection radiating into new applications. And so whether they're, you know, at the edge finding anomalies or outliers or, you know, in the cloud or wherever, that's been radiating around. And you know, that's cybersecurity analytics has really emerged as a new area with, you know, fairly sophisticated algorithms, you know, based on deep learning, like long short-term memory analysis or autoencoders for finding, you know, multivariate outliers. And oftentimes there's text. I was talking about NLP before, feeding those algorithms as well. And this is kind of everywhere. You know, some people think that, you know, anomalies is just in IoT or whatever for manufacturing and, you know, figuring out root cause behind, you know, outliers and run-to-run control problems and so on, or production surveillance in the energy sector or telco network monitoring. But, you know, it's also all across finance, anti-money laundering, you know, risk and trading, insurance claims data. The ability to find, you know, outliers in a programmatic way and understand their root cause is an important area. And those new techniques I just mentioned have come to the fore. And cybersecurity analytics is a pretty hot topic because of that. But you also mentioned computer vision. So being able to figure out and recognize objects at the edge, you know, that's been a very maturing technology. But, you know, oftentimes you don't have the photos. So we've even gone backwards in a sense, and we're analyzing not just MP4s, but MP3s, because you can pick up sound files no matter where you are. And the, you know, the methods of identifying anomalies have really kind of, you know, expanded. And getting back to manufacturing, I guess this notion of finding patterns in the output. So we've been working quite a bit on human-centered AI because, you know, the eye allows you to detect patterns in like 13 milliseconds. So if you can find things with your eye and then say, okay, let's set those aside as patterns of interest, maybe they're good, maybe they're bad. But now let me train up a machine learning model to codify what my eye has recognized on a small data set, on a bigger data set. And now I can get that machine learning model to identify patterns. And then let's put it on the real-time stream so that I can, you know, classify, you know, wafers that are coming off the manufacturing line into these groups where I can take corrective action. So when I say adaptively radiating, all these kind of bits and pieces that we've been working on over the years, I think are merging into being able to quickly identify patterns and understand the root cause behind the patterns and take rapid action.
Yeah, that was great, Michael. Thank you. I want to just briefly thank everybody that joined, especially the folks. Senthil, thank you. Ron, thank you. Mohammed, thank you. Kana, thank you for your comments. We'll definitely follow up. We appreciate all of that. And we appreciate everybody that joined. These are something that's very important to us. Hopefully you see that not only are we able to provide some really good insight, you guys are validating that, but we're having a lot of fun with it. So any suggestions you have, please have them come to us. And again, don't forget about the hackathon. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks, everybody. Thank you to the panel. That was a lot of great fun, guys. And everybody go have great days and great rest of the week. Stay happy and healthy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fred.
Thanks all.
Bye, guys.